probably going to get hit with a big bill because they told me to keep it at 76 degrees. So it's about 70 right now. It's working good. But you know, not only I'm familiar with Kiwanis because they really help the youth of the community. If you don't know much about Kiwanis, they're international, and I just wanted to give them a little plug. Councilman Long is in the house. If everyone would just give him a little round of applause. Mayor Gunther, our surprise visitor from the back. Mayor, thank you for coming. And I have a few folks from a special unit from the Cape Coral Police Department. So it's Officer Ward, Officer Hume, and I'll be bringing them up. They're getting in the trenches, kind of like me. They get in the trenches. You know, they get in the trenches. You're getting into the neighborhoods, under the bridges, looking under tires. I mean, that's them. They're kind of boots on the ground, my kind of people. So we do have a brand new secretary, but I don't believe he's here. So we will wait for that introduction for our next meeting in the fall. But I really wanted to have kind of like an open town meeting for you to meet our council member from our district in our own homegrown. Keith lives here, and you know what's funny is when I hear him talk, it's funny because I have the mic and he's kind of back there, and it's usually the opposite. But he's very direct, and he's just my kind of guy because you ask him something and he immediately just gets right to the meat and the bone. So I really like that about you, Keith, and I respect that about you. I also feel the same way about the mayor. I've met both of these folks individually in their offices, traditionally on a Wednesday, and you know, just talk candid. And I don't think a lot of our residents know exactly everyone in our government body. I don't even think they know what really is going on behind the scenes, and I hope to change that tonight. There's a lot of work that our staff has been doing as far as parks, recreation, development. We have a news story coming out that will be published, but can I have all of our volunteers stand here right now? All of our chairs, and can we just give them a round of applause? So this meeting will be taped, so we're going to have a camera. So if you don't want to be on camera, please, you know, shy away from it, or do not ask a question. But a lot of times, people find out later that they've been taped on camera, so we don't want to surprise anybody. I put together all the emails we get from our residents and neighbors. There's 4 hot list topics that we'd like to have Councilmember Long come up and address you directly. And I thought the format that we would do is we'll cover Northwest Cape commercial zoning, okay, which is a hot topic. A lot of emails on storage facilities, right? Dollar stores, all the things that we have, but I think everyone's looking for other types of commercial activity. One of the things that I've stressed to many people, especially on a county level, is Northwest Cape, you know, we do not have the restaurants. We do not. We lost them when, you know, we lost all those great restaurants with Mount Lachey going down quietly. Just heartfelt, a lot of work there, but we've lost so much of our commerce. And it's important for us to know where we're going, and it's important for us to be part of it. You know, losing all those restaurants, you know, I'm talking about Birds, I'm talking about, you know, Hooked, and all those places that we visit, especially, you know, going there with boats. I think a lot of people in the city don't realize that, and people from Mount Lachey don't realize that we were the driving force economically of those restaurants, those vendors, those retailers. It was Cape Coral people spending our money there and driving the economy there. So we've lost all that, and we need to get it back, and it's very important. But So I'll ask Councilman Long to come up and we'll talk about the commercial zoning, our vision for the future. And we'll also take questions. So why don't we come up, we'll just turn you loose. And everyone, Councilman Keith Long. So this is loose.
Okay.
All right, so.
Glad you figured that out for me.
It bounces.
Thanks, Jerry, I appreciate it.
You're
Thank you all
welcome.
for being here, thanks for having me. Anytime I get an opportunity to speak to my residents, it's a privilege, especially ones that are in my own district. Unfortunately, this is my first meeting before you guys. My understanding is it's only about the third meeting since I've been in office. We've had a hurricane, quite a few different things going on. But it's a pleasure to be here. So I guess I'll start off. I've told a few of you this story, but not all. My introduction to the NWNA, and I think see John Bashaw smiling in the back. I was appointed, for those of you that don't know, I was appointed to office. My predecessor fell ill, and so I was selected by the then council from a group of about 13 individuals that had applied for the position. This was back in September of 2021 to carry out the remainder of the year, which was at that point about a year. And so I was privileged to be able to be selected by the council, and I get my first day in office, and kind of getting settled in, get my office ready, and one of the members of the staff for the council comes in, and she goes over some administrative stuff, and she says, "So how do you want to handle the NWNA?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she says, "Well, your predecessor, had a certain predisposition about the NWNA and the relationship that he had with them, and so his sort of policy was that he wouldn't field any requests or calls from at least the members of the leadership in NWNA. And not to speak ill of him, but there was a contentious relationship between a few of those individuals, and so that was the first time that I had really been introduced to the NWNA. And so at that point, I'd almost immediately reached out to Mr. Bashaw, who was then the NWNA president, and thought it was important to establish a direct line of communication, which I think we held pretty well throughout his tenure there. And the reason being is that it's a no-brainer, right? It's low-hanging fruit. It's an opportunity for me to engage with you guys, my immediate constituents on a more personal level, understand the issues that your leadership's kind of tapped through you guys' discussions, and engage. And so, again, I'm grateful for the opportunity here to do that. So I think what Jerry said is kind of the idea of how I want to flow through this tonight. He asked me to speak, I was happy to do it, and so what I want to do is kind of speak with you rather than at you. So I'm going to cover a couple of those topics that he had mentioned. I'll start with the zoning, just kind of give you a brief overview of kind of the lay of the land as far as that particular topic is concerned. And then I think I'll take a moment to stop and maybe address a couple of questions pertaining to that topic while your questions are fresh, and then we'll move on to the next one. And then at the end, certainly you guys have questions that won't be covered with a few of the topics that we have here, and I'd be happy to open it up and let you guys have at it. So yeah, with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Commercial zoning, that's a big thing. That's a big thing for me, and I think sometimes when I speak to my constituents in District 6, I think that they don't necessarily understand that I'm in that district. The way that we have the offices set up here is that I have to be a member of that district in order to represent that district. And so I deal with a lot of the issues that you all deal with, and obviously the lack of commercial infrastructure in that particular area is something I'm keenly aware of. Got 3 young children, 6, 4, and 2, and so we're always looking for things to do, and we've got to drive a long way to do them. And so one of the things that I had taken up almost immediately working with the NWNA was just kind of setting out a plan. We had, I believe, the previous council, the mayor, and a few of the others that were on there had given a directive to establish a zoning overlay and a zoning district particular to Burnt Store Road. And when I had taken office, the mandate was there to kind of push forward, but it had sat stagnant for a little while. I guess it just kind of fell through the cracks, and so we picked it up. And one of the main points that we wanted to hit was making sure that we did Burnt Store Road right, because it's really our last great opportunity for significant commercial growth in the city. I mean, you can address a couple different commercial opportunities throughout the city, the Southwest, and other areas. But as far as having a crack at a large magnitude of new commercial coming online all at once or remotely close to one another, that's pretty much it from a city standpoint. So it's important that we get it right. So what we've done at that point in time is we, as a council collectively, and myself individually, worked with staff and kind of gave some mandates as to what we wanted to see there. And so some of you, I remember speaking before you at the, I believe it was the library in Northwest, about a year and a half ago about the Burnstore Road corridor. And at that point in time, we had said kind of what our vision was, and it remains our vision, and it's to make sure that we do the growth the right way. So we want to make sure that we foster commercial growth in ways that are impactful to the residents more than the quick stops. You know, the strip malls, the dollar stores, the gas stations, of a certain magnitude, drive-throughs. We want to bring in real commercial drivers, and so that was our vision. Storage facilities obviously was a big one. I know Jerry touched on it, and I think I've gotten probably 500 emails about storage facilities, probably from each and every one of you. And,
sorry about that. We did a bulletin, yeah.
And so this is kind of an opportunity, and I appreciate it, like Jerry said, to clear the air, because I think that also when I speak to some of you, that you don't realize that that was one of the main things when I spoke to staff is the storage facilities, because there had already been one that was previously approved and zoned, which is now, I believe, completely final, next to the gas station on Tropicana. And frankly, I would prefer that didn't take place, but it was my directive that we make sure that it was the last one. And so unfortunately, coming from a business background, it's hard to discern the difference between the business and how quickly things move in the private sector and in the public sector. And so I was told, and I believe that I told you all at that point in time at the meeting, there's so many things hoops that you have to jump through in that process to establish that district. So we created the language exists for the Burnstore Road corridor, and it shows all the things that we showed you at that meeting. It shows the limitations, it shows the lack of the ability to create standalone multifamily. Multifamily is something here that in years past, I think the city has kind of trumped out as a deficiency, and I think that we all know now that that's no longer a deficiency. At least as far as I'm concerned, and so that's not something that I would necessarily want to foster is more multifamily housing. For me, it's commercial, so a lot of it is focused on mostly what you can't put there, and by way of deduction, there's only a few things left that you can as far as larger scale multifamily or mixed use opportunities in this Burnstore Road district. So I wanted to clear the air on that because, like I said, I get a lot of emails. I'm not keen on storage facilities whatsoever. So in fact, this would have been something that was addressed long ago, if not for some issues with the previous staff and management at the city. One of the things that I originally wanted to address, because I was told that the Burnstore Road corridor was going to take so long to go through and transmit to the state, was that we spot addressed almost a line item in our code to, while we were waiting for this thing to get underway, let's create a single ordinance that limits the ability to put storage facilities period on Burnstore Road. We've since implemented that, so that's active and current now. And then a few weeks after that, we also implemented a statewide moratorium on storage facilities. The downside to that is, unfortunately, Senate Bill 250, I believe, just came through the pipeline that addressed a number of things, a lot of them great, and apparently nobody caught it in the industry, in the city, other municipalities, that limited the city's ability post-hurricane, so September 28th, to enact any ordinances or land development regulations that limit your ability to, or limit your existing code. And so I think the idea behind that was they were looking to spot address particular regions, Fort Myers Beach, for example, or those, and instead of limiting it to those jurisdictions, it was sweeping, I believe, statewide, or anybody that was declared in an emergency zone. And so what that does for us in the corridor that I just laid out and the ordinance that I just laid out is it leaves us almost retroactively having to limit or reduce those restrictions through, I believe, 2025, if I recall correctly. What that means in plain language is that everything that we've done in the last 2 years as a city to put forth initiatives to bring forth these changes that I just discussed, the limitation on the storage facility, the fine tuning of our commercial corridor there, essentially it paused all that for the next 2 years. And so what we've done immediately after realizing that is we reached out to our local delegation, our state legislators, the mayor's work, I believe with Senator Morton and Representative Mike Giambardo on this, as well as I believe Roach. And we're told that there's a chance next year to possibly go forth in the legislation and fix what they inadvertently created as it pertains to the city kid quo. So what all that means in a nutshell is we've got big plans. The city took too long to implement them, which would then of course have been after the hurricane. And so now, everything that I've just laid before you is still in motion, we're gonna continue forward with it, but we're not going to be able to implement it until, I believe, Mr. Mayor, it's 2025, correct? Yeah. So, we're working hard to try to limit the impact of that, but that's something that we're gonna have to continue to move forward with and address. But nonetheless, I think that there's still some opportunities there to make sure that we tailor the growth in a way in that interim period to facilitate more of what we'd like and less of what we don't. And that's done through a couple of different things. The DCD, the zoning department, those changes, I think a lot of the people know, the land developers, the owners, they know kind of where we're heading and the opportunities that are laid before them. So now the approach is kind of selling the landowners on holding on to that land for the future when the zoning is more apt to be more lucrative for them to sell when we lay forth all of these corridors and districts that we all benefit from. So I think with that, I know he had mentioned the restaurants and that sort of thing. One of the exciting things, and I think NWNA broke the news when it first came out, was the Grove. I don't know what they're calling themselves now, the Grove at Cape Coral or Grove at the Cape. But the short version of that is Coral Grove at the Cape. So 350,000 square feet of commercial space. It's commercial, that's retail, that's office. These guys are the real deal. They're gonna take over, I believe, 112 acres over there next to Bubba's on Pine Island Road, which is right around the corner from First Store Road, which we just discussed. And that's gonna be the equivalent basically to it's gonna take just about as long for a lot of people in the Northwest that are coming down the Burnsville Road corridor as it would be to Mount Shea or something like that. It's gonna offer a lot of the same amenities, and unfortunately, they're probably gonna beat Mount Shea to the rebuild, which is a shame. But they're looking to break ground, I think, within the next year or so. And so there's phases that are involved in that, but that's something that we're really interested in moving forward with. We meet with them very regularly, about once a month, to make sure that they stay on track and get everything that they need from the city, so that we can kind of get out of our own way and let private development do what they do and get things off the ground. So that's something that we're incredibly excited about. Seven Islands, of course, is something we're excited about. We'll discuss that, I guess, at a later blurb. But for right now, I guess I'll stop and see if there's any particular questions that you guys might have regarding the commercial aspects that I've touched on or that I haven't. Yes, sir.
Yes, a month ago, my name's John Hickle, by the way, I live in the area. A month ago, we were in city chambers and talking about the easement.
Sure.
Vacating the easement.
Mm-hmm.
So if your hands are tied to, restrict the building of these things, storage units, isn't the easiest way is not to approve that vacating of the easement? Because in that chamber that night, there was one person who wanted it, and that was the owner of the land.
Sure.
Who was going to profit. Everyone else that stood up and spoke were against it. So.
I believe you're talking about, just so I'm clear, you were at the hearing examiner meeting
Yes,
regarding that?
yes.
Okay, sure.
And one for, and I don't know how many were in there against, okay? So it seems to me that that's the one way the council can stop that storage unit being built, is not to approve vacating that easement. And I know that's coming up tomorrow at council meeting, I believe.
It's being introduced tomorrow, so we won't be voting on that, but it's gonna, the way that it works is we have to.
So am I correct in that assumption, that that's one way to
I
stop it?
think that's fair. Yeah, I think I've been pretty clear. I know all of you haven't been privy to any of the emails, but I sent responses to just about everybody that emailed me and kind of laid down the parameters for that. That's a sticky situation. That's not something that we can necessarily say, which is, I believe, what was disseminated to you at the time of the hearing, that we're not able as a council to deny it just based on the use that's proposed there. I think that's pretty clear. So, not that we can't deny it for any other reason, but that's maybe why you guys got the, what I've been told, the reception that you got with regards to your opposition was that the opposition was based on the use itself, which the use is permitted by right. That's not necessarily what they're asking for. They're asking for a vacation lease, which is a different process. That's not to say that I certainly agree with you that I absolutely do not want to see a storage facility there, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we do everything in the right way to ensure that if that's a property that the city does, for one reason or another, does not want to approve the vacation lease, then we won't. But we just can't say that that's the reason why. It's more of a legal issue than it is a logical issue, which I think you can attribute a lot of government to that.
Well, I know
Logic doesn't always prevail.
The recommendation is for approval.
Yes, sir,
What I
based
read.
on the same legalities that I just
Right.
discussed. It's
And,
not to
so-
approve the storage facility, it's to approve the
We do
vacation.
not want a storage facility in our neighborhood.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I absolutely agree. I would not want one there either, and I think I started at the onset saying that storage facilities are not my friends, they know they're not my friends. But this one is tricky, I can't just say I don't want a storage facility there, because that would be against, the limitations that we have as a council as it pertains to this particular request.
You know, one little thing about this,
Sure.
one thing that we found, and this isn't a beautification meeting, you know, we just talked about it's a board meeting. So there's plans of Embers. If you look at Embers, the beautification plan and the medians are to be expanded, okay? So what we're finding is, if you expand those medians large enough, where it's green, right? You're actually blocking some of those commercial egress areas, and they don't want that. So it's very interesting. I just wanted to come up here and bring that up.
Sure.
Because the original plan on Embers is to extend these medians. Now, some of the residents are a little annoyed. Oh, what do you mean, I gotta go around a couple blocks? Okay, but look at the wind, look at the potential wind. So I'm gonna extend a long, a long stretch of beautification area, lawn area, curbing, trees. And now that area extends to the corner of Embers. And guess what? There's no egress to go into the back side of the storage facility. So it's interesting, just a little tidbit of
Well,
information.
hold on there, Jerry, though, because we don't wanna limit any potential future development, commercial development that might be amenable to you all. But yeah, I get it,
Yeah.
if that's,
I do
can't
this, by
speak
the
on
way, I'm
that.
sorry, I mean.
Hey, do it.
Yeah, Mike was here, I would, we'd go back and
Do
forth.
it, yeah, I agree, gentlemen.
Bruce Abrams, I live in Northwest, very close, right on.
Sure.
So I have a couple of concerns. From what I heard, I mean, we have the one Tropicana now. I heard there's 3 more or 4 more that are in the approval process in the way of storage facilities just in that section.
Not that I'm aware of, 3 or
Okay.
4, I believe that there's one, the one that had just been spoken about, and I believe there was one other one that's.
And there's one to the
82,000
west.
square feet is what they have on the city website that shows you what permits are at Tropicana and where it's stored. 82,000 square feet storage unit across the street, on the same side of the street as the 7-Eleven is proposed.
Sure, yeah, and unfortunately well, I guess I'll go back to this gentleman.
Yeah.
So my point was
I will address that.
that there's such a small amount of commercial liability in that area anyway that's gotta support the entire Northwest.
Sure.
And instead, we have at least 2 storage facilities on the way. Once that property's gone, it's gone forever. Blocking it by putting in islands is not a great idea, because if we do get something we hope to get, like restaurants or things like that, now they have no access from the rear of their building, which
Sure.
means deliveries are a problem, things like that. To me, I'm sure you've already thought about it, but I would get the governor involved and say, listen, if you for any reason bring the legislature back, we need to jump
Yeah.
on this and do a carve out.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be too late. We can't bring back commercial real estate.
Yeah.
Once it's built on, it's gone.
Absolutely.
And just one more quick thing. And here's a thought I had from previous developments I did years ago up north. Maybe we should be looking at areas that are not on Bird School Road or Pine Island Road, but are still undeveloped. Change the zoning for those and kind of herd the storage facilities together.
Yeah, correct.
Because that way you have a zone, like a commercial zone. Instead of it being the only commercial zone we have for retail, restaurants, banking, et cetera, they're off on their own. I don't know, maybe we could even do a land swap still with these people that have already bought land. And I think that the city should look into investing in land, unless we already own the land, because I know we own a tremendous amount of land throughout Cape Coral. But I think we gotta look at other viable options other than saying we're gonna wait till 2025 and see what's left. Because it's gonna be too late.
Sure. No, I don't
And
disagree.
just as much as you guys are asking people to hold off, those people that are building these places are rushing.
Oh, yeah, they're trying to get in before the gate
Yeah,
closes.
and that's the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I hope that we're clear. I mean, a lot of the actions that we've just taken shows you kind of where council stands on this. I mean, we just issued a citywide moratorium on storage facilities. Prior to the bill being implemented or even any scintilla of the fact that it existed. So we're all on the same page here. The problem is.
That's not gonna work.
No, I know, but the
Right.
problem is the governor's the governor, so you can't preempt, the governor preempts any local legislation. So the problem is having to go to the governor. The governor, they only enact bills once a year, like you said, they have special sessions where they address itemized issues.
Might get time to get to them.
Yeah, so, that's certainly something that we've discussed, we've been in negotiation, or not negotiation, we've been in, discussions with a lot of our local delegation that does speak with the governor, that makes legislative changes at the state level, that represents us in this district. Those are you guys as representatives as well, at the state level, so I would certainly encourage you all, and maybe Jerry can get you their information as well, to forward along, your recommendations, that this is a big issue, that this affects us, because as much as we do and we can do, it certainly is beneficiary from them, their elected officials as well, to hear from all of you. Those are the real changes as it pertains to this particular topic, and that's not me kicking the can. I think we've established a pretty decent framework for where we stand on this. Unfortunately, the way the laws work is that when a decision comes down from up top, we have to adhere to that decision until we create a carve out or an exemption that allows us to carry on with what we would like to do. So unfortunately, that's the position that we find ourselves in. Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've bounced around a couple of different things. We're not just taking it laying down. I mean,
Well, you might have to sue the state.
yeah, well,
And say, look,
that I won't discuss, but.
Well, we had this on the books, and now you did something that retroactively messed us up.
Correct.
There's gotta be a workaround, or there's gotta be pressure put on to get it.
We've spoken with the legal department, city attorney's office, numerous times on this subject. It's something that we continue to look at and look at. This is one of my biggest things here, and this is sort of my big driver, so it's certainly not something I liked, I welcomed. I was just surprised as you and apparently a lot of the other local municipalities, so it's something that I continue to work on. But yeah, everything that I've had worked on basically for the last year or two kind of rises and falls on how this thing shakes out. So I certainly have a lot of skin in the game here, as do you all, because like you said, once it's there, it's there. So, certainly. I believe I'm gonna just follow up on this woman here, who had brought up something about the storage facilities. Those storage facilities were, that facility was previously approved. The issue here is, I think, and it's also, I'm glad to kind of clarify, this isn't anything that we're doing. We're not bringing these forward. We're not proposing these. We're not telling these storage facilities, hey, we got land over here. Private property owners have rights, and so, well, the only thing that we can do, which is what we do, is we can change the zoning designations to limit what they can do on those particular properties. And so that's what we've done, that's what I just spent the last 20 minutes talking about, that we've tried to do. But the fact of the matter is that before any of those rules were implemented, the previous zoning classification allowed for that use by right. So it's not something that comes before council and you say, yeah, go ahead with that storage facility, because I certainly would. But as it sits, that property is moved to that use.
So I'd like to add to that, so the knee-jerk reaction on Tropicana was to, there's lots of accidents, rip it out. And so they changed the Tropicana, Burn Store Road.
Sure.
As they were developing Burn Store Road in Embers, they changed that and they had the turnaround, and then they had the Shadrow Lake quick turnaround that lets you go straight across to
Sure.
Embers along with that. So right in that square feet, there's two different ways to get onto Burn Store Road heading south. And so now, with the proposal of the median changes, does one department in the city talk to another department? Because now with that median closure, 32nd Place is going to become a major thoroughfare from the 7-Eleven and that other storage facility to that other, if it does end up a storage facility.
Sure.
So that residential street, because commercial's on one side, residential. So it just seems that these knee-jerk reactions of rip out the Tropicana and now there's no way to get to that new 82,000
Sure.
storage facility and.
Well, good, maybe they won't build it. But no, well, first of all, and in this job you can't please everyone, but I do want to clarify that was not a knee-jerk reaction. So that was something that I had identified early on. I got several emails probably from some of you with concerns. I didn't get any people saying that they wanted it there. I got a lot of people saying this is an issue. In fact, I had a gentleman, maybe he's here today, that made it almost an ongoing, like a weekly update on all the accidents, and would send me pictures and videos. And it was a concern. So it was less of a knee-jerk. We had monitored that site, and that's a county roadway, which I'll get to that part. It's Lee County that runs that roadway. They have all jurisdiction over that roadway. They're responsible for the maintenance and upkeep and the design. And so our office that you had said, our department, we have a department in the city that works with or talks to the county department that overruns that. And we monitored that for several months, probably longer than I would have liked to. I would have preferred a knee-jerk reaction, but they actually they've got the data, and so we looked at the data, they looked at the data, the engineers, traffic engineers, powers that be. I can't speak to the county's divine wisdom as to that being the solution, I don't know whether it was the right one or not. But the county is ultimately the one that makes those decisions, and I'm not sure that, that they even coordinate with us to the extent that I wish they would, to kind of get our feel for what we think might or might not work. So, that's the answer on that. This gentleman back here.
Excuse me, but from what I understand, 25 to 30% of the storage units now are vacant. Why do they need more for?
Well, I don't want more. I can't answer that for you.
If I'm proposing it, and the city doesn't say anything, put a moratorium on it, or something.
Well, we did put a moratorium on it. We put a moratorium on
How
it.
long is it gonna last?
Well, it would have lasted for, I would imagine, statutorily, I think we could do a moratorium for whether it's 6 months or a year, and at that point in time, that gives us, that would have given us the time to enact, local changes that would have more stringently restricted the storage facilities. But as I said, Governor signed a bill that basically preempted our ability to make those changes. But we did make them, and they have been in effect for several months, and then when that bill became effective on July 1st, it essentially wiped it out. But we, we don't, I have no idea, they don't report their private figures to us as far as occupancy rates. They're not obligated to, so certainly they don't. I have no idea how occupied they are. But it certainly seems like there's more than would meet the demand, but I've been wrong before. This gentleman here.
Yeah, Dr. Ron Panzino, I've been coming here for 30 years, and now I'm coming here.
Sure.
I want to thank you first for coming to see this. I'd like to say that I've watched Cape Caldwell for a long time now. I'm in favor of their beautification process, but I have an objection to the plans for cutting off some of those views on Embers. And my thinking on this.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Cutting off what on Embers?
Those U-turns.
Okay.
You have on Embers, the O-rings, access, whatever you like to call them.
Sure.
And I think it lacks vision for the future of the area, because if Seven Islands comes to fruition, as we all expect it will at some time, if you cut off many of those views, the people that live in the area are going to have to be on Embers for longer periods of time, when you're anticipating that there's going to be much more traffic on Cetus, Embers, and Tropicana to get to Seven Islands.
Sure.
So it really lacks forethought. And I'd like to see us stop our consideration of doing that, although I am in favor of beautifying that median.
Yeah, just to be clear, you're talking about the median at the turn?
On it.
On Birdstor or on
The whole
Embers?
length of Embers, there are about, I don't know, 9 or 10 views.
Okay.
And they're talking about cutting off half of them, including 32nd, which is where that storage is.
Okay. Yeah, that's noted. I don't know anything particular with regards to that specific.
It's in your website.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is, but I don't build the website. So I'll certainly reach back out to our staff and figure out what, and I'll get your information afterwards and follow up on that. But a lot of the issues that I've dealt with in that region recently have to do with the county side of Birdstor Road.
Well, we're thinking hard about Seven Islands.
Well, yeah, that was my thing, and I thought that's where you were headed, and so you kind of threw me through a loop there with the Embers stuff. Was that one of the things, and that goes back to the fact that the county doesn't reach out as much as I would like for a project that's in our backyard, but first thing I seen when I saw the plans was that we've got this huge destination coming on that we're hoping, that's the whole point, is gonna generate a significant amount of traffic, and yet we're building this infrastructure here on Birdstor Road that doesn't really contemplate how we're gonna funnel these people in. And so there's no stoplights, there's no significant turn action on any of those main roads, Tropicana, Embers, Cedar. So how do we do that? So we reach out to the county, we advise them in no uncertain terms that we've got this coming online and that they'd be prudent to take action. And unfortunately, as of yet, we have not seen that. That's not to say that they can't change it. I think this one here just explained it. I was actually surprised how quickly they turned that around. So it can be fixed. It's something that we'll certainly work with them on. But yeah, I'm just as disappointed as you are in how that played out with regards to access as far as the foresight. So we'll see. Anybody else regarding this?
Well, I have an opposite view than he does, because I live on 36, Southwest 36th Place.
Sure.
And my exit is gonna be the ones that's blocked off.
Uh-huh.
I'm fine with that, because if you look down, if you're going down Embers, there's short little groups of grass if you're putting curbing around there and putting landscaping in there, it's gonna not look right. It's better if you have a long line of landscaping in there, in my opinion.
Okay.
You're gonna be
And I
on
think
Everett
it's-
longer to turn around now.
I understand that, but I don't mind going up a couple streets and making a U-turn.
Well, look,
There's
I-
a lot of traffic headed to 7 Islands.
Yeah, I don't discredit either one of yours, like I said, I'm not familiar with it, but I think it's important, to forward those
I'm just
suggestions
trying-
along to me or staff, and so that's something that they can
I just
consider.
want
We
to
can't
say-
know everything, staff
Not
can't.
everybody agrees.
Yeah, staff can't contemplate everything, so if you have those opinions, I would encourage you to send them into the city, through my office, or through the, Public Works Department, and, so they can put that on the board when they're, kicking around ideas. This gentleman back here, I believe that's Mr. Carter, there he is.
We should remember that we had 2 county commissioners that take care of issues for us on Burnstone Road. We talked with them some time ago before it was done. We were very much involved in what was supposed to happen. Yes, at the end, a little bit different did happen, but we no longer have that racetrack running across there 4 ways. These guys wanna help us. Brian Hammond, Kevin Ruane, they want to help us. You could call them just 2 weeks ago. I was on Burnstone Road, and it bothered me that there was only 1 crossing mark for these kids crossing, coming under the bridges. 2 weeks later, you'll see now we've got 2. One way down the road, and right there. They wanna help us, guys. The city can't do everything. We have to go where we need to go.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think he's right, and that's the point I made with regards to the legislation that just kind of cut our legs off, for the commercial stuff that we're doing. I think it might be helpful for Jerry, if he hasn't already, to maybe put together a list of the representatives for our area at the different levels. So like the city, obviously I'm your representative at the city level, but we've also got state, representatives in our district, that would be Mike Giambardo, and then our county commissioner, who would be the one that you'd reach out to for county issues. One of them, right, for discussion is Burnstone Road, would be Commissioner.
Yeah, we could post that.
Yeah, just so that you have it available, and then maybe when a situation comes up and it is a jurisdictional issue, that the city can address, if I can address it, I'd be happy to, but, that's also a resource, I think, to be able to have, because some of those questions, certainly you could send them to me, and I'll kick them up, but, as elected officials, we'd like to hear from you guys directly as well, so, I think that'd be an important resource. This gentleman up here in the teal shirt.
I am Bill Musgrave.
There you go.
I'm wondering how the city's coming, this might be off topic, but how the city's coming along with the parks, specifically Crystal Lake.
Yes, sir, that's next. So let me just make sure that nobody else has any questions about, the zoning discussion broadly, and then we'll go there.
City is responsible for rezoning, correct?
Yes, sir, on properties within the city, as long as they're not annexed and incorporated.
Right. So 32nd place, has that been looked at additionally to rezone that back to residential on the site towards the canal?
32nd, you talking about Embers?
No, I'm talking about 32nd, off Amherst.
Okay.
Second place north of Amherst, between Amherst and Tropicana.
Yeah.
On that corner there. Yeah. Somebody had emailed me in regards to that corner, it might have been Menu, and I forwarded that information to, staff to have them address it, because again, that's a
Is there
staff.
anything else we can do? I mean, I'm willing to help.
Keep bugging them. I don't mean bugging them negatively, but keep up on them. And when you email me, I email them and let them know that they're not doing what they need to do, and so that usually kind of lights a little bit of a fire.
It's just gonna be so dangerous, it's dangerous right now.
Yeah, I can't promise you that that they'll do what you're asking, but they'll certainly, I can let you know that they're gonna take it into consideration, because I've had the discussion with them. In fact, I think you emailed me the other day, asking for a follow-up, and I again reached right back out to them, to say what's going on, and so if you haven't received something, you should shortly, as far as.
So it can't be rezoned as long as there's nothing being done as far as building. You just sit there looking and say, okay, we're gonna have a storage facility here, maybe, right?
If the property's zoned commercial, and in this schedule of
Okay,
uses.
but I mean, if you have a house, and the property is commercial, if you have a house, you don't want a Dunkin' Donuts next to it.
We don't want one, but yes, I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
in any scenario, you're gonna have
That's
those,
what I'm saying.
those.
If it can be looked at and reevaluated as being the common sense thing to do.
Yeah, we established to limit, the impact as much as possible, buffers and things like that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, there's always gonna be an impact. I'm not opposed to that line of sight, but I think just by the design of the competitive nature of the city, that you're always gonna have uses that are butting up next to one another, so, that's a problem that we continue to run into here at the city on a larger scale is, we don't have the zoning, commercially zoned opportunities that many of these other cities have, and so we're limited in what we can do. So when you have an opportunity to have commercial, in my opinion, unless there's a rare circumstance, I'm gonna fight to keep it, because once it's gone, to that gentleman's point, it's gone. So, yeah, but again, everything you look at in a vacuum with regards to the site and how it's set out and things like that. But yeah, I can't speak to any particulars with that. That's a zoning issue with the staff. Anyone else for commercial? Oh, we got a couple, okay.
Hi, my name is Joan Fry, and I live on Old Brunswick Road.
Okay, good.
I guess my concern is the 7 Islands. The infrastructure that we have right now is not going to be enough for what they're planning on putting on that 7 Islands. What is the plan for the infrastructure? Right now, during season, when I try to get out of that area, I can't even get out of Cedars Parkway. I mean, it's just horrible. So I just don't know what the plan is for infrastructure.
So the city's been working with the developer on that, and I think when they originally created the design plans and those sorts of things, and when we get further along into, you know, rubber meets the road and what exact uses are gonna go on those sites, permits need to be issued, and there's gonna be traffic studies and things that necessitate those. I wish that there was a way to do that now, because it would be very helpful to have that in place before rather than after. I'm a proactive guy rather than a reactive guy. I'm still learning that the government, against my wishes is, not ours, it is every government, gets in their own way, and so they're more reactive. Certainly something that we're looking into, but it's also, you know, to our credit, it's one of those things where you don't want to, that property's been vacant for many, many years. We've been trying to get a suitor, for lack of a better term, for that parcel for many, many years. The way the economy is now, especially the commercial economy, we see a lot of these commercial developments that previously pledged one thing or another backing out because the rates are too high or one reason or another. So to play both sides of that, I guess we certainly wouldn't want to overextend and create this infrastructure for something that frankly they haven't broken ground on yet. So there's really no good answer for that, but I do know that there's obviously merits, certain zoning credits and things that need to be looked at. So the powers that be, there's a book or a Bible somewhere for the engineers for transportation, and whether it's right or wrong, that's what they go by with regards to what you need for certain developments. And on a larger scale, maybe that needs to be looked at, but I can certainly tell you that every one of those are gonna need to be met in order for the permits to be issued for that site. Anyone else for zoning, commercial?
Well, just a point there.
Yeah.
You know, one of our first meetings here, you know, the challenge here is, look at the landscape. You have the canal system, you know, 400 miles, you have the linear canal system. Every single neighborhood is dead end, right? We have an estuary that borders all these properties, and you have a master plan community that's huge residential. And I mean, talk about an incredible challenge of creating a commercial district. So, I mean, I understand. I mean, if you just got up in a helicopter and looked down, and you look down at our northwest, where are you going to put commercial districts? You know, it's a challenge. So, I think you know, I just want you to be aware of that too, because the things we enjoy the most are, we're so residential, we're quiet, we're cut off, you know, from a lot of the mayhem. I come from New Jersey. I mean, I came here, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know this existed, right? So the very thing that we want is a kind of a vibrant waterfront commercial district.
Sure.
Spaces where we can go. We also want to maintain what we have. I mean, we have this community of canals. We can go down the street and see marine life. I mean, so it's going to take balance. Not everyone's going to come out.
And we also don't want it in our backyard.
Right.
And
so
everywhere is somewhere's backyard.
Yeah.
And so my job is to balance all of that, or take the heat at least for not balancing all of that. But yeah, the fact of the matter is everywhere is somewhere's backyard. So did you want to?
Yeah, no. So you know, this town center. I mean, we're so excited about it. You know, we're gonna go down there. We're gonna look at the development. That is really the answer. These areas where we can kind of confine. You go to Sarasota, you go into Lakewood Ranch. A lot of lakes, a lot of golf courses take up, again, go up in a helicopter, look down, okay, where are we gonna put a commercial district? And the gentleman, you know, the great point of maybe putting it in a confined space where we can develop all of those areas tucked away, but it is a challenge, and I think we're up for that challenge. That's why we're here. We want the balance, and I think it's important that we start to attract, I think, two things, and you must know this, and it comes from my past life. Development follows utilities, and retail follows people. Look at all the apartment complexes.
Sure.
Retail will follow. The problem is, how do we preserve it so it's not all storage facilities, and we can have some restaurant space, and that's I really could understand the monumental problem you're dealing with, especially now with 250, Bill 250. But I just want everyone to know that something hits the fan, and John Bashaw is the same way. I learned from him. I'm one of his disciples. I'm here because of him. And what I've learned from him and you is that something comes up, we are in constant communication about concerning. So just know that. And come out more. We'll give you the list of legislators and elected officials, but we got to engage. We just can't sit back. It's too precious what we have.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
One last point, I guess, and then we'll move on to the next subject, and this will segue us into it, and I didn't make the point, and Jerry kind of leaned into it a little bit, is sure, the retail follows the people, and the commercial sort of one hand feeds the other. I think that's just business, and so we don't regulate the business, but the business market usually regulates itself. But one of the things that we can do to help, and I think we are trying to do to help, is utilities and the lack of available utilities for these commercial properties and these parcels, and particularly north of the most recent utility expansion in the Northwest. And so a lot of these sites, I wish that it was the case that the storage would go away if water came. Storage is apparently very lucrative, but one of the reasons why storage is so prominent in that area is because storage doesn't require and is not dependent on water, utilities, restaurants, retail office, those are all water dependent, and we don't have city water in that northern region. And so one of the more important things to me as well is bringing water to that area. And so that's, again, the good with the bad. There's going to be a lot of negatives with that. As you've seen, we're having some dissent among the residents with regards to UEP costs for the residents in North One and the cost that those are bearing. And so we're doing everything we can to do that. But as far as UEP in that area, if we can find a way to activate that corridor, and that's one of the things the gentleman said, kind of come up with other ways. We're trying to incentivize other commercial people to come to the dance, so to speak, rather than storage facilities who don't need the water, is activating that water sooner than we had anticipated on Burnt Store Road. So that's something that we continue to do. We worked with a private developer, Hudson Creek, who recently hit their zoning change, and one of the conditions that I made sure that was in there was if they were gonna have this development come online way far north of any contemplated UEP in our area, and they were gonna tap into our existing UEP, that they bring it up along Burnt Store Road corridor, which would advance our timeline by at least a decade. And so I'm happy to report that we did get that, but that only works if they do what they say they're gonna do and develop. But those are the kind of things constantly, like Jerry said, like I said, we're not taking this line down, we're coming up with alternative scenarios to do that. And so with UEP, with that region, North 3 is the next one to come online. It's north of where we left off in the Northwest, and that goes all the way to Kismet. We had the selection advisory committee today, actually, and so they're anticipating that the construction is to start, I believe, in 2025 for that. So that's the timeline that was presented. That's the master utilities plan presented in 2025, and that's something that they're intent on meeting. So any questions on that? I see this gentleman's had his hand raised.
Yeah, Ron Franzino here.
Yep.
Again, since you brought up the water, since we moved here a year ago, we've had a number of people come to visit. We love the area.
Sure.
One has already bought property, and another is probably going to buy this month or next. At a recent Northwest Neighborhood Association meeting, a poll was brought up about the wells on the north side that are running dry.
Mm-hmm.
I can't in good conscience advise my friend to look where there are wells if they're running dry. And I'm wondering if we got any data on that particular concern. That, we know how many wells are going dry.
South Florida Water Management District would be the ones that would advise us on those sorts of things. It's not necessarily data that we that we keep it, but we certainly don't generate it. South Florida Water Management District is responsible for those sorts of things. And we do get those reports, we keep an eye on them, and in fact, it shouldn't surprise you that a lot of our decisions that we make with regards to where to go next are almost predominantly made up with where do we need to go next. And the need is obviously where the wells are the driest. So,
And where is that?
well, most recently, I would, again, following that logic, it would be where we're at now, North One, which is in the northeast area. So, we did the master utilities plan about 1.5 years ago, where we kind of set out all the quadrants about where the UPs are gonna go and where we want them to go. And to me, thankfully, the next one in line is, in my district, but then the other one, which is north of Kismet, west of Bernstore, pretty much covers that all the way to the border, which is a very fast growing area. It's right on the Spreader Canal, Jacaranda, those sorts of areas, where we have a significant portion of single family, new home permits coming online. It was set for about 2045. It was a discussion I believe the mayor recalls, and we had, as a council, said that we encouraged them to look at maybe bumping that up because that's where all the growth is going. And they were inclined to do that, and then they came back and said that they would have agreed to that, but not for the fact that the South Florida Water Management District had advised us that, in no uncertain terms, that we had to go to North Point next. So the wells, the aquifers are drying up there if we don't address it. I believe they were even willing to go to the extent of at least bluffing a building moratorium in that particular area. So that's been addressed, it's being addressed, the UP is underway there. So yeah, we unfortunately we're playing catch up. We put a UP off for several years under the previous administration, and we're still suffering the consequences of that financially and otherwise. But it's certainly at the top of our radar. We have teams and departments dedicated to doing nothing but that 24/7, and I'm confident that they're going to be able to do it. But in the Northwest, I'm happy to get the report that I got today that as of now they're still planning on meeting that 2025.
So is 2025 when it starts, when does it finish?
I believe it typically takes a couple of years. They're supposed to have been, originally that's what I'm trying to get my information correct on when they anticipate. A lot of it is bids, permits, things like that, but I think they originally said that they were gonna have, see John's written back there. John, do you have a different data than completion is what they said? Okay, well, under promise and over deliver. So yeah.
Imaginary water supply.
Correct.
Can you just have, I wasn't here for Embers. I don't know if everyone was here with Embers, the cross cut over from Bernstore to Bernstore.
Sure.
So how does that, when they go into zone 3?
Yep.
How will that happen? I get a lot of questions. Where do they start? Do they start in Tropicana and connect all the way from Bernstore to Bernstore and then feed off of that? Do you know?
I have no idea. No,
Okay.
I don't. I make a habit of not speaking on stuff I don't know. So
Okay.
I won't even try to stumble through. That's a technical question for the engineers. Yes, ma'am.
I have a real simple question.
Yep.
I'm Cheryl Pearson. I lived at Denver and Overburn Store for like 29 years.
Okay.
I can't figure out where Seven Islands would start. Is it like, Tropicana or Yucatan or what's the street?
So it's right. So Tropicana, the city owns that. So we'll talk about. I promised the gentleman we talk about parks next, and I jumped to utilities. But Tropicana Park, right at the foot of Tropicana, as far west as you can go, the city owns that. It's been planned. It was put forth in the GO bond that we were going to bring a park to that area, and that's well underway. But unfortunately, it's been extremely delayed by Department of Environmental Protection permits as well as Army Corps of Engineer permits. So we own that. But directly to the south of that is where the island begins. That first island, I think it's the island itself, the very first island. Adjacent to Tropicana is where it starts, and then count down to 7.
I'm looking at Fish.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an exciting project. Again, it's one of those things that we're excited to bring online in that area. I think it's gonna pretty much light up that whole area, for better or worse. I know traffic is something we need to address, but commercial, they're talking about phase 1. I spoke with the developer today. They're going through permitting. They meet with the city, I believe, monthly, and they're looking to put shovels in the ground 2024 for phase 1. Which would be, I believe there's a marina component, there's retail and commercial components, hotel as well as, I believe, a few condos. Yes, sir.
Any talk, Ron Francino again.
I know you by now, Doctor.
Is there any talk about limiting the number of marina slips that they're going to have for residents?
Government does that. So are you for residents or just in general? So each,
I would love for it to be a place that we who live on the canals now could enjoy driving to in our boats, and not just simply have it all blocked up with people's slips and boats that live there that are going to compete with us in traffic to get down to one.
yeah, that may or may not be in the plan. I know, Mr. Bashaw, do you have any idea whether that's, frankly, it's private. I mean, they're only entitled to a certain amount of slips for that property. I think it's incumbent that they address that internally as to how much they want to leave for the public, but it certainly would be a huge failure to not be sure that they leave enough slips for the public to be able to go, because the idea is to be a destination, to be a waterfront or land. So I think that's, unfortunately, that's not something you can restrict. The government restricts how many they can have total, but we certainly, I don't believe, have any authority over how they can utilize those spaces.
I would think the developer would want to have a certain amount of public usage.
Yeah.
To increase the patronage of the restaurant.
Well, yeah, and to sell to the leasehold for the tenants. I mean, you want to be able to show that you've got people that can come from here or there. I think that that's a problem that's going to resolve itself. I think, I don't anticipate that they're going to, as lucrative as it may be, rent every one of those slips out and have zero access to the waterfront. I don't speak for them, but generally, as a businessman, I deal with a lot of entities similar. I don't think that that's ever been an issue. Yes, sir.
Are they planning on having gasoline for any folks there on 7 Island?
Again, I think, I don't see why they would. I think that's almost a must. It's a significant source of revenue that they would be passing on. Yes, sir. Parks, we're back to parks. UEP's over, that was quick. I'm happy to get over to UEP. Let's go to parks, let's go to
And you're
parks.
still standing.
I'm still here. You guys haven't got that bill yet, that's why. So, parks, yeah, the two parks that are big for me, fortunately were the parks that I inherited, that not much has changed since I came online here in this office in 2021. It's Tropicana Park, it's Crystal Lake, and so those are go-along projects. Those are projects that the city's been limping through for many years now, for better or worse. You know, COVID happened and delays in the economy and those sorts of things. But the story that I'm getting is that it's permits. We're in a unique situation here. When you look at the parks that we've got left in the Go Bond, I think a significant portion of them, the reason why they're still delayed to this day is a lot of them are waterfront. So you've got the Yacht Club, which we get beat up on constantly, that's waterfront. You've got Tropicana Park, which feeds into the waterway, and then Crystal Lake, which has runoff. And so what happens is the more inland parks, Crystal Lake has water access to it.
No.
Not direct access, it has water, so it's regulated by an entity that, correct. So what happens is we have more government hands in the pot. So as I think my theme here is the government is not as efficient as it should be. So now we've got to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers, we've got to deal with the Department of Environmental Protection, the EPA. And so those are the permits that are holding us up currently so we know where to move forward. I can tell you that Crystal Lake, finally we got all the permits that we need. That's going to be going out to bid here by the end of this month. And so I was told today that they're looking at starting construction, I believe, in within the next year. I think they're going to have a completion within a little over a year. Is the proposal. So we'll see how that comes. But typically, what happens is, like I said, the permits hold us up. Once we get approval, we put the bids out. That has to go out for a certain number of days. We get it back, and then we issue the bids as council and move forward. And then the construction moves forward. Yes, sir.
A follow-up question. Since we're in that geographic area, there's supposed to be a walkway to Charlotte Harbor or something?
I'm gonna let Mr. Bashaw bring that to you guys' attention either now or at another date. I think he's the one that's kind of spearheading that project. He's worked with the city, and we're happy to do it. And it's my understanding that he's got a pretty good reception from the city as far as bringing that to fruition.
Yeah, I think we talked about it at the previous meeting,
Okay,
and I think at the next meeting, we'll have another better update to share.
so that's forthcoming, sir, on that particular project. And then Tropicana, waiting on the permits. So those are the two parks, as far as I know, in the region. Those are unfortunately the updates that I've got. I continue to pester them probably weekly to see where we're at with those, and that's what I get. Yes, sir.
Hey, John Garcher again. I heard Keith say we can no longer sit back. We have to be engaged. What does that mean to you? How can we help you? You answered all my questions. What can we be doing for you in our position?
I didn't hear the last part of that.
What can we do for you, our elected officials? We need to be more engaged engaged, we need to take part more. What does that mean to you? How should we do this?
I think in large part, you do it. I think as an organization, this organization is one of the largest as far as a citizen organization in the city. You do a pretty good job. I work with leadership and let them know kind of where we want. We have the same vision. So when I need you guys' assistance, I'll kind of kick that out to you guys. But being engaged is many different forms, right? It's showing up, it's speaking out, it's sending emails, it's coming here and asking me questions, whether I like them or not. But it has many faces, right? And so I think, yeah, you guys are doing everything right as an organization. I think Jerry is
How
more
about
capable.
that political word?
Say that again?
The political word. You know, we're an at-large city, we vote for everybody. We're non-denominational, we don't care if you're Republican or Republican. or Democrat.
Sure.
We should be engaged a little bit more to support you and the rest of the council members and what you're trying to get done. I think we need to make a step in that direction.
Yeah, that's a question I think for you all internally. I know just having gone through the election that was something that was something that I was surprised by was that you guys as a collective body don't, I guess, engage in the political aspect. But this whole thing is political, right? So whether you have a horse in the race or not, I think who you choose to be your representative, whether it's me or someone else, that is something you should consider, whether that's something that you guys wanted to get behind as a membership, and at that point in time, whenever that comes, the next elections, I think, are in a year or two, and maybe discuss it. Maybe you don't go that direction, but I think it's important, especially considering that a lot of what gets done or doesn't get done, and particularly through this body, is who you choose to represent you and your belief in them. So I think maybe something along those lines is something I would consider. I mean, our numbers, right? So we've got unions that not that you guys are a union, but unions, that's sort of their whole sell, right? As far as the political aspect is the membership citizenry that they bring to the electoral process. So without getting too political, I think it's something that you should consider moving forward. Is whether or not you guys want to get engaged in as a collective body hosting a forum during the elections and formally choosing somebody that you back and disseminating that to your membership. Maybe it's not. I'm just answering the question that was presented. Yes, sir.
Back. Can you tell me what's going on with the voluntary advisory committees that they seem to be just going away with the city council?
Yeah, well, particularly, I think you know, because you answered the question, we've just disseminated most of the advisory committees. What was the particular question?
Why?
Yeah, we had several meetings, so there's a couple whys. For me, the why, because I was a yes vote to get rid of those, I think it's important to know that before I was on council, I was a member of the volunteer board. So that's a unique qualifier, I think, for me, people like to cast stones. But I was on those boards. And so, for me, because what happens is council sits on a lot of for all those of you that don't know, the question was, we have up to this point had a couple different volunteer boards in the city, comprised of residents that volunteer their time in different capacities on different matters to advise, or in some cases make recommendations to city council on certain topics that might be coming before city council. And so those are comprised of different groups. Some of them, Waterway Advisory Board, the Planning and Zoning Commission is not voluntary, but that's one of them. The Golf Course Advisory Board, we had the Budget Review Committee. And so I believe at the onset, which preceded me, the idea was to get some of these residents involved and explain the process to them, and have them, the idea was to get qualified members for, let's just say, the Budget Review Committee. We wanted people that were private citizens, willing to lend their expertise. A lot of them, we were hoping, were formerly in the financial world that maybe would lend a helping hand to the staff from a citizen standpoint. And so what I found in my short time here is that those boards turned into sort of political machines, and they weren't doing the jobs that they were set out to do. And frankly, it was in large part a drain on staff resources, because each council member had to be appointed to those boards. We would sit through those boards, but not us in our time. But our time, staff's time. We have staff members that would sit through these meetings sometimes for hours, 3, 4, 5 hours, and nothing would get done. And so we balance. Obviously, your question was slanted a certain way, but we balanced that with the idea that we want the citizenry involved. And so we've created a couple different avenues for the citizens to be involved. And to a large extent, the citizens are welcome to come to any of our public meetings. They're welcome to email me, which I know a lot of you have. And I hope we'll continue to do. So there's other ways for citizens to get engaged, but for me, putting them on those boards and allowing them to become a political animal in and of themselves to no end, and there was really no benefit to it. For me personally, on city council, that wasn't something I could support throwing staff resources at. Yes, sir.
So you were talking about, the Tropicana Park.
Sure.
And, right now, the rowing club from Cape Coral is occupying one of the islands. And, I've heard that they're planning on moving to Tropicana Park. And that the town is considering letting them put up some buildings. So to me, that's a private club. And the park is going to be for the benefit of the people in this room. Why would you consider, or why would the council or a town consider giving them the privilege of having a facility there when there could be other designs for people, the people's use, rather than a specific club use? I believe, from personal observation, since I live across the street from them, that their current lease, they've broken that lease in several different ways. And I don't think we need to go through here those details. But to me, they haven't lived up to the agreement that they signed. So why should they be given any special access at something like the Tropicana Park, which is a park for the people, not an individual club? Thank you.
I actually hadn't heard of the rowing club. I'll have to look into it. No, good question.
I think Jerry can fill you in on that.
Yeah, good question. So that was something, not to kick the can, I inherited that. So it's my understanding that there was several meetings regarding the rowing club and where they were gonna go or where they weren't going to go, dating back to the Go Bond sort of discussions, which predated me. And so I was told pretty much that this is what had happened, these are the discussions that took place, and more or less that these are our marching orders moving forward, based on how council saw it previous. And ever since then, again, we don't need to get into the particulars, but it's been one thing after another with regards to the rowing club, which has led me to ask a lot of the same questions. Why are we going to the hassles that we're going through to facilitate something for this very specialized group that doesn't affect the citizenry as a whole? And not everything does, but I think in this case it's even more minimized than typical. And yeah, I've had discussions with staff about that. I don't know what the plans are moving forward. I know you said plans, but I'm pretty sure that that's sort of a done deal with regards to the way that it was set up previously. I've had discussions that say that sort of was kind of set forth that they were going to take that facility, and now we're really just hammering out the details of the lease. The other side of that coin is the recent stuff that you had alluded to with regards to their unanticipated move to the 7 Islands and how that all shaped out. And yeah, there's been some issues with that as well, which again lead me to the discussion I just had with this gentleman about staff resources. I don't know that I haven't in fact supported throwing the resources that we have to this point at that particular organization. Nothing against that organization or what they do. I'm sure that it's a great cause and it benefits people. But for me, I look at in every aspect of the decisions I make, how it affects the city as a whole. And so sure, I would be happy to help out people in an individual basis or a fragmented group, as long as it's not to the detriment of the city. So the more that we throw resources at this particular issue, that for one reason or another continues to create administrative and other problems for us, is certainly something that I'm aware of, keenly aware of, and I have discussions regularly with staff about that.
So you're saying it's too late? They're gonna have part of the Tropicana Park, and they'll be using.
As I understand it, unless somebody knows something that I don't know, that was a foregone conclusion, that was, I mean, the document hasn't been signed, but the council had given the directive many years ago. Just give me a nod if I'm heading in the right direction. No nod. But that was the way that it was described to me by the city manager.
Why would you sign another lease with an organization that's already broken the lease that exists now? That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense. And so that's,
So if it was a commercial property, whatever it was, another storage unit or 7-Eleven, and they broke their contract with the city, why would you renew their contract? It doesn't make sense.
it's a question that I've asked myself.
You know, I was there when you guys had a meeting with the mayor, and you voted to approve it, which was fine. They had, you know.
You're talking about the temporary lease,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
Yeah, but they had 100 young children there.
Oh, yeah.
Those kids don't row the boats.
So I'm told.
They don't live in Cape Coral. You know, when I talk to them while walking my dogs, you know, they're coming, I gotta get going because that's a long ride to the spring. So the first question I asked is, why were they thrown out of, the environmental park down by the bridge?
Yeah, that I don't have.
I'm not expecting you to know the answer.
Oh, here goes Jerry. No, I mean, look, I share the same things. I've had discussions with a lot of you guys. Jerry wants to rescue me, but I'm gonna try to rescue myself. Those are questions that I'm gonna ask. Look, I'm only one of 8 members. I'm one of 8 votes up there. And so I had discussions with you guys as president at the time about whether that was a battle that we wanted to have and a hill that we wanted to die on or not. And I think ultimately he had some discussions with membership and we decided that there was a better way to attack it. And so certainly that I think based on what you said is that problem is more or less handled itself. It created their own issues. So a lot of the issues that we have.
For these people here, yet you're gonna have a tenant that abuses their facility.
Yeah, sure. So that's the point, right? So they were given an opportunity, and then to your point, that opportunity to some extent has left questions. And so that's something that I don't necessarily look back on and say that I wish I didn't do that, because in fact, if there was a lifeline, I think that they've possibly presented one to us by some of the points that you had mentioned before. But again, I'm one vote. So those are things that when we get an opportunity to discuss that I discuss, and I speak for you all when I say these things, and I hope that I get that point across clearly to the rest of council. But I think we're on the same page with regards to that.
This is the gentleman I met.
We met on site. I think you're the fellow who works with the veterans and also train the dogs to help out in a nonprofit capacity. I have to tell you, behind the scenes, they're operating right now in an island that's vacant. Look at what they're operating out of. There is a looming development project, right? So they did leave a development project, a Marina Basin type project, where they vacated from. And all I'm saying right now is that once things are hammered out, as things come to fruition with 7 Islands, it's going to be really looked at from the development standpoint, also the city, but from our neighborhood association, we have a lot of attention on this. And that's what I will say. And you know, when you look at coexisting in a marina basin, how many slips came up tonight? What does it look like? Is it possible to operate there safely? So, to be continued, but we have met. I just got up here because I did tell you similar things, but I'm not afraid to talk out in public. But this is an issue that, as things come to fruition, it all has to make sense. And you know, we're pro smart development. You know, so you know, we'll be watching very closely, sir.
Yeah, I guess I should have prefaced this by letting you guys know, and I think Jerry said it was an attribute. I don't know that it is, but I'm very direct and I am to the point. And so part of that is I'm an attorney by trade, and so a lot of the things that we do and the things that I say, I haven't heard anything here that I don't disagree with. But I'm also by trade, I'm not in a position where I typically kind of put it all out there. So I don't think Jerry gave me the same privilege that he gave you all with whether you did or didn't want to be on the camera here. And so a lot of the things, it seems like I'm dodging the question or being more direct. It's because in the position that I'm in, I don't like speaking to more than I need to on a point if ultimately I agree with you or the decision is made. I don't think there's any point in talking too much and putting out anything on the record that would ultimately be to my detriment in the future. But yeah, certainly, sir, I agree with you. A couple of you individuals over here at the storage facility, I agree with you as well. But in a litigious society that we're in, particularly with these hot topics, it's not. You might be wanting more from me, but that's why sometimes you won't get it. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to point out that I foresee a liability issue for the city with the rowing club at that location in Seven Islands.
Okay.
Because I've actually, as a realtor, taken photos from the land just south of Seven Islands and seen kayakers up there now battling with 35-foot and bigger boats. On weekends, it's multiple boats. They're fighting those wakes and they're trying to find a place to go. And, you know, of course, some boaters don't adhere to the rules.
Sure.
So, you know, one of the things that we had sought, in an early proposal with the rowing club was that they should be located at Crystal Lake. One, it's a dead end of the Sperder Canal, so you don't have a cross boating traffic. Two, they have a long canal there that they could use for starting their training and whatnot before they gain more experience as rowers. We could even one day foresee taking the Crystal Park area and turning it into a venue that specializes in rowing and kayaking.
Sure.
When I worked at Cape Harbor, Bill Stout, who was a prior developer, he had visions of, on the side of the marina that was not developed, he was going to create another restaurant like Long Runners and dedicate it to rowing and kayaking and that type of thing, and make that whole area follow that kind of theme. And I think a win-win for the city, one, because we're coming with a use that would encourage people to move here that like that sport or want to participate in that sport, or maybe they have a kid that's gonna go to college at Georgetown or whatever and be a rower, or scholarship, those types of things. But also the fact that it would just become a destination place.
Sure.
I think it's a win-win. And the fact that the rowing club was not happy with that location because it was too far for the membership that they had, or the students that they were training that were not capable residents to drive there. I think that's a non-issue. I think their membership and their students should be Cape Coral based first, and if anybody else wants to come to some other place, that's fine. But we do city of Cape Coral,
Sure.
not in these schools.
I don't disagree. I think the point there is yeah, it's a city. The city's going to participate in any way, shape, or form. I think we should. I think it's fair to ask for some things in turn, right? If it was private property and they were private developers and they wanted to do those things, then we're limited to a certain extent in what we can do. Just like the gentleman said, one of the vacancy rates. They don't have to give it to us. But if the city is involved in this, which in this case we are, then I think we should be asking those questions. I don't disagree as far as the citizenship and the membership composition and those sorts of things. As far as Crystal Lake, I think that was something that we all identified pretty early on in the process as a viable option. You had cited a couple different issues that they had said they had. I think one of the main issues that they had said to our staff was the lack of available water. But as far as utilities, wash off the skulls and those sorts of things. But those can be addressed in my opinion. And then to Mr. Carter's point, I see he has his hand raised, but I'm going to cut him off really quickly. Hold on, John, let me finish this thought, please. To his point, I think it's important in the context of this, because it seems like a large portion of the membership has a certain feeling about this particular issue, that the composition of council at that point in time when that vote was put through was wildly different than it is now. And so to come full circle into the political discussion that we just had, whether you want to get political or not, I am an elected official, is those are the sort of things that you should look at moving forward. Is if you've got certain issues that you believe in and you want your representative, whoever that might be, from whichever district it might be, to echo those, then maybe you should be involved in the political process as a body. Maybe not, but I don't mean to hijack that point here, but since I am direct and I speak transparently, if you did have some different, which we now do, composition, then that vote would have went differently. And I think if the vote did happen in the next year or two, I think that there would be a different outcome. Yes, sir.
Can you give me city council's opinion on master?
I can give you my opinion.
I'll take yours because I trust you.
That's your first mistake.
The Mass Canal car wash thing, that seemed to be against what the citizens wanted big time.
Sure.
Filling in part of a canal for commercial car wash, which is as bad as having another storage facility. Now, I don't live out there, but those people work very hard to stop that.
Incredibly hard.
So what was city council's position on it? Did you have any
we didn't have a position, fortunately, and I don't like kicking the can, but that was a can I was glad to kick, because that was not my district. So, the predecessor in District 4, I believe it was Jennifer Nelson, and she bore the brunt of that, and it was unfortunate because I don't think that it was deserved. I think previous councils many years ago, and don't cite me on any of this, but I believe the decision was made by council like 8 years ago or some, a large portion of time ago, many councils ago, because we change councils every 2 years, split it 4 and 4. And they had made a decision, just to kind of bring you all up to speed, that they were gonna rezone that property to commercial, blankly, based on some vague, proposal that a gentleman was gonna put in, I believe, and again, I don't know the specifics because it was out of our hands as a short answer, that it was gonna be, office space and residential, or, office space and retail, I believe a real estate office. Guy changed his mind after the approval, because the council then just gave him a blanket approval for, commercial, and there's a schedule of uses, as we've covered, the schedule of uses in that, was a car wash, so the guy sold it, and, the zoning that was approved, which at the time I think council thought was conditional on being, office, was not, it was just commercial, and so the schedule of uses allows for a car wash, and here we are. So, as far as this council's position, I'm sympathetic to that, but I also, we've discussed at length, because they have put forth a heck of an effort, and I commend them for the effort that they've put forth. Our attorney's office has pretty much advised us that we have no direction to overturn that zoning ruling at this point in time, and so we had advised them of that. They had done a great job, I think, of going all the way up to the Army Corps of Engineers, who I think was the last bastion of hope for them, and I believe that they did not get a favorable ruling in the last week or two, which is unfortunate. So no, that's one of those things that just happens, and I didn't have any involvement in it. If I did, I could, hindsight's 20/20, but that's just unfortunately the case.
No, I realize there's no clocks in this room.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
I'm-
there's-
So, maybe time for one more?
Sure.
And then I'd like to, pull up some of our offices in the
Absolutely,
back,
yeah.
and,
Absolutely.
and if you wanna hang out.
I'd be happy to hang out and answer.
You know, it's not easy here, just reverse it, one of you come up here on the podium, you've been going at it for over an hour.
I had to get some water.
Now, there is watermelon in the,
Okay.
fridge today, so. But,
And I should have made you guys watch me eat that.
not easy to do, to sit up here and just take the barrage, but, what do you think?
Not happy to do it.
Was it, it's not easy, no, I don't wanna take any time from you, I wanna get these gentlemen up here, and then,
Sure.
if you hang out.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I'll be around for a little bit. Let's get these.
But you know what, thank you, by the way, thank you.
And then like, yeah, we're on the clock, go ahead.
Okay, well, I think you had something to do with this also, Councilmember Long. There's the Community Policing Unit. It's a brand new unit that was established by Sergeant Phil Lamana and Officer Kuhn and Officer Ward. I asked them to come in. Let's give them a round of applause. They're getting into the neighborhoods. We have a lot of open spaces, obviously. There's teenagers, there's kids, we were all there. We probably hung out at campfires, it's going on big time, but, we don't get a lot of rain in these parts, so we're a little concerned. There's been some concerned citizens, and I know you've been recognized by some of the folks here today. But not only want to thank you for coming, but thank you for this initiative. And if you can talk a little bit about what you expect and what's going to happen. Thank you.
I'm Officer Kuhn, it's Officer Ward. I've been with the Cape Coral Police Department since 2005, so a little over 18 years. I started in '97, so almost time to retire. So we're part of the Community Service Bureau for the Cape Coral Police Department. What we do is quality of life issues. So some of the concerns I guess up north are the large bonfire type parties, the ATV and dirt bike activities up there. So we've done different operations at night to try to catch them, since that's a lot of the complaints have been for the nighttime activity. Whenever it happens, feel free to call patrol. They'll be more happy to respond out. The issue we have is a lot of times, I'm sure none of you guys are the ones doing it or any of your neighbors, but a lot of their residents are driving the ATVs and dirt bikes back there. And the ones that stop, we'll educate them the dangers and safety hazards and take appropriate action. They are being more before we'll find them. That being said, though, we're not going to get in a high speed pursuit with their teenagers and dirt bikes. And we try to keep an eye on them, but then they go back in the neighborhoods and they park in the garage. So it's kind of things we'll do the best we can to try to keep it down to a minimum. But it's really just a hard solution that as the city develops and a lot of those vacant land just taken up by projects, commercial buildings that help the city, it kind of resolves itself over time. Anything about that? Or?
Yeah, just our unit, I guess, was kind of created, there's only 4 of us.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
There's 4 of us. A north, central, south, and then we also deal with the homeless population. I know with the north, yeah, we're constantly now up at Crystal Lake, you know, dealing with the bonfires and stuff like that. You know, maybe graffiti on a bridge, or fishing, or the illegal parking their own bird store at the bridges, things like that. We get those all the time. And we really just wanted to introduce ourselves and let you all know that, you know, we're out there. Most of our calls come from either the 311 system, the Citizens Action Line, if you do it on the computer, or a lot of times anything that you address to your council member or the mayor in the form of an email kind of works its way to the chief, and then he passes it on down to us. We just have more time to concentrate on those items because we're not on patrol. So if you got a noisy neighbor who plays their music a little too loud, you know, late at night or something, we have time to go out, talk to them, explain the ordinance to them, and try and, you know, get things done. Whereas patrol, they need to come out, they see the violation, they tell them to stop, and then they got to move on to their next call. So we're just kind of another option that you can use. And like I said, you can get in touch with us in several different ways. 311 seems like where I get most of my complaints from.
Like I said, we're part of the Community Service Bureau, so one of the things we do is with community outreach. So if anybody has organizations or businesses that want to invite the police to come out to your activities, I got some business cards I hand out. You can email us and we'll try to just get out, you know, into neighborhoods and businesses. Any events we're more happy to try to participate in if you feel it's something that you would like to have us out on. These are quality of life issues that we deal with. Like I work with the homeless, there's a lot of resources available out there. So I do go under bridges and stuff, but talk to them and try to get resources to help them back on their feet and see what programs might be beneficial for them. Like Officer Ward said, maybe there's 4 of us in here, we all work well together. He's in the north, but if he's having something, one of us will bump over and help him out.
I deal a lot of the north issues. I mean, there's people here today that, you know, I've been dealing with, and along with the rowing club too. I've talked to that lady too about her things. Nothing that you're addressing with the council member, but you know, I'm also familiar with that. So, you know, we're here for you.
You know, and that's all I wanted to communicate. I mean, we have
couple last announcements. We will be at the council meeting tomorrow in support of Mike. And all of you know, Mike Gilchizen spoke at our last meeting. And I'll tell you why. I mean, obviously he's not running for election. But supporting Mike, I did meet with him. We have a relationship that's developing. Don't forget, we haven't had one with the city manager. And the city manager position here in Cape Coral is very critical to achieving our completion of our 4 focused projects. You know, the one thing about Mike, he's homegrown. You know, and I read an article today from Derek Jeter, and he talked about signing free agents. And he talked about homegrown farm system people that play in a team. And I think Mike's one of those guys. But what concerns me is if it wasn't him, we're dealing with the #1 focus project that we have is a cut, right? Is another option, another exit out of our spreader canal. And when you sit down with Mike, he's familiar with the DEP, on the state level, the state of Florida, the EPA, the Army Corps, Florida Waterway Commission, Lee County, Great Calusa, Blue Way. All these divisions, you have to have knowledge. You have to know who to call. to get things done. That is a huge learning curve. That's the one thing that concerns me with anyone else. But I just want to let you know, I'll be out to the council meeting tomorrow. It's hard to get up here and speak in front of people, but if you want to come out, I will just say, if you support Mike, you have to stand up. But I think it's very important to our organization. I think he was very candid, and I believe, you know, his mom was here at the last meeting. I think you have a person that really cares. I think you have a person that's been a lifetime resident. And, you know, for some reason, they turned him right when the other fellow left office, and they went right to Mike. So we like Mike. And I'll make it known that we support him. On another good note, you know, it's going to be nice to go address council, not with an argument, but supporting somebody, you know, and actually bringing people together. With that in mind, we are going to have a Margaritaville social event. We were thinking about a Halloween party, but everyone had to get costumes. And we figure everybody has island, you know, kind of dress. So that's been coming my way. You know, it'd be great to have a monster meeting. I'm hoping to have a development meeting with Seven Islands in the fall. I've just cornered our Mayor Gunter, and I asked him to speak. So he will be next in line. So I'm looking to do not only a general membership meeting in the fall, but also within a week later, kind of a social that we're going to talk about that. We don't get a chance to talk. And I don't really like microphones. I'd rather just hang out. So it would give us a chance to really get to know one another and come together, and that's important, I think, to our organization. And I just want to thank you all for coming out. We were contemplating whether we're going to have a summer session, but we have enough people here, and obviously you care like we do. And our goal, just to pull people together, we want to make Cape Coral the best place to live in South Florida, Southwest Florida, and that's what we want to do. Thank you for all you do. Special thanks to Mayor Gunter for coming out. I did not invite him, and he came and he surprised us. I wanted to also thank our council member Long, and he really took it on the chin. Thank you all for coming out. See you soon. Thank you.